And this is what we're going to do. We're going to create a very simple app using MIT App Inventor. We're going to provide you with the source code and the APG for a more complicated app that you're going to use later on, that we're going to localize, but that's going to be used here. It's going to be mostly a hands-on session, and then at the end I'm going to show you a URL where you can find more tutorials that you can follow if you want to develop these skills further. So the app that we're going to create is the one that I have on my phone right now. It's the whip app. Don't know if you've seen it. If it makes a little bit of video. Does it have sound? Oh, well, it's an idea from the Big Bang Theory TV series. And this pretty much has the same functionality. We're going to use MIT App Inventor. MIT App Inventor used to be known as Android App Inventor. It was developed by Google. It's a system to create applications without writing code. We use our blocks that fit each other, so it makes the entry level, its barrier is very low. It's very easy to create simple applications with it. You need both local and web software. Since we're all using these computers here, you don't need to download anything here, but you have the URLs there if you want to later on work with it on your own computers. And we're going to need some files that you can download that URL. It's pretty short, so
give you a minute to download.
I'll also so this is the URL that the page that should get you to, and the one that you need right now is the WizApp zip, and to download it, go to File, Download.
So what you're downloading here is just the graphic of a whip and sound. Okay, that's the only two components you're downloading.
The URL, oh sorry, yeah, that's the URL.
So you can save them just somewhere. There's a work area in most of your PCs, you just save them there. You're just going to need them for the development of this app. The session's going to be very interactive. So the three of us, Lucia, myself, and Aram, are here, and we can just walk around. So feel free to put up your hand if you feel a little bit lost, or you don't know what's going on, or you just want a pointer, and we can just come over and help you. Okay? But the first stage is to download those. And just put them somewhere where you can find them again. You've missed the best part.
Both.
Has everybody got them downloaded?
No.
Has everybody found them yet? Who has them? It's only you, Ryan.
Once you're here, you click the one that we need now immediately is WebApp. You click on WebApp zip on the left, and then File, Download. It's not the most user-friendly process.
You need to
You got that?
Good.
You got that? Hands up who has those two files down somewhere. Okay, hands up who's lost. It's okay, admit it. I'll come and hug you. It's okay, I'll make you feel better. No? Reinhard, do you want a hug?
No, it's already installed there, so
So App Inventor works mostly straight off the server. So there's no client software really. So in fact, what you write here, if you go back to home and you sign on Google on your Gmail account, you'll still have access to that. So you're actually, it's interesting, and you're actually developing in the cloud. All the compiler, all the software that's used to build the application is in the cloud, and all your software that you actually write is going to be saved in the cloud. So everything you do will be through the browser, and none of it will actually reside on this PC at all. Okay. So the nice thing is, if you go home later, or and you want to start back on, that same application will still be there back in Spain or wherever, Dublin. Okay. So it's cloud-driven development, and it's sort of interesting how different companies are pushing different things, and Apple are pushing one way. Google's big bet is on the cloud. I mean, so everything, Google Docs, Google Drive, everyth's in the cloud, and this app developer is very cloud-based as well. So just to check, how many people have managed to get those 2 items done? Yeah, there's just one is an image and the other one's a sound file, that's all. Yeah? Anybody? Okay. So
the next thing is going to Mesa Inventor, beta.appinventor.mit.edu. You're going to need to allow this app access to your Google account. So once you have allowed it, you will see the first screen. You'll have to wait because I see a lot of people aren't there yet.
So you'll have to sign on to Gmail first, and basically what you're downloading is an app into your environment that's going to give you access to App Inventor. Okay. So do you want to take them to the first screen that they should see after the...
So once you have accepted, well, this screenshot from my App Inventor account, and I have a few projects already. But here, what you need to do is just click New. You will have no projects, but you want to create a new project. And you can call it WIP or anything that appeals to you. You see the new is some upper right, upper left part of the user interface.
You've got it. You've got it. The advanced one. Okay, so where in your checkbox where you should be now, you should have successfully downloaded those 2 items from the zip file, put them somewhere where you can find them again, and you should be looking at a pretty much bare, empty App Inventor screen. Okay, because there's nothing there. Okay, to get there, you will have signed on to Gmail. For those that came in late, you will have downloaded Chrome and be using Chrome, not Internet Explorer, because right, Internet Explorer will cause weird, strange things to happen. Right? And so Chrome is just gonna fit better. It's a Google thing, and Chrome works better with it.
Can you use Safari?
Oh my God, no! I don't know. I've never tried. You can if you want.
Internet Explorer.
Internet Explorer. So Reinhardt would have filled you with his biased pro-Apple stuff, okay? And from the world of Android. And I nearly choked myself when he compared Android to Microsoft. Oh my God! Oh my God! So I'll bring my own bias to it. Nobody can say it's not going to be a balanced workshop, isn't that right?
So yeah, App Inventor, the 3 main elements that you're going to be working with. One is the designer screen, which is probably the screen you're all looking at now. The other one is the Localizator, and the last one is the Emulator, or a real phone if you're working with a phone. I don't recommend it because the drivers for your phones are probably not installed on this computer, so it probably wouldn't work. But if you do it at home, you probably have your drivers on your computer, and you can use a real phone instead of the Emulator. So this is the designer screen. This is how it looks new. On the left, you have the palette. The palette contains all the different elements that you can use in your user interface. Some of them are not actually visible, so it's not really just the user interface. Right now, you only have one, which is screen 1, the first screen. The ones that are not visible will appear here underneath, and here on the right, you have the properties of the element that you have selected. So, for example, you have the title, you see screen 1, and it appears here. If you click here and you change that, which is maybe the first thing you want to do. You want to change it to something like track the width. Oh no, you can do that there, and you'll see it appear.
Wait. Ah, oh, yeah.
This is some of them.
You used to actually, you're married. Oh yeah.
Yes. So that was what it looked like when you have nothing. This is the localization that we're going to look at later on. You can see you have table, you have lots of, you have buttons, you have other elements, you have media that appears here. So it gets a little bit more complicated.
For those, basically, nearly what you have on the left, for anybody that's been in a sort of WYSIWYG GUI builder, or all your standard components for building any sort of graphic screen. So you've got your buttons, your pull-down boxes, your checkboxes, and some of the other stuff. If you just click on sensors there for a second, oh, that's a slide, is it?
Yes, slide.
Yeah, if we just go over to sensors, we'll just have a look around here. I think I had it open on my Google.
It's much better than iPhones.
Yeah.
I like these.
That's important.
Okay, so if I go over here and I'm going to my projects and I go into LRC quiz. Now this you're going to look at this later, but that's built simply by dragging and dropping these components across. Okay, you're not going to have to build that today. You're going to be given the code for that today. But some of the interesting stuff that's different, and one of the stuff that we talked about, is of course you have access to interesting input devices like accelerometer and your location sensor and your orientation sensor, which aren't standard sort of input for your PC. So you can access all of those. So, and in fact, one of the features of this app is the thing that's going to make the whip crack is it's going to use your accelerometer as an input device. So it'll actually sense movement, and when it senses the movement of your phone, it's going to play that sound. So we're going to use one of those in a very naive sort of way. Okay.
So now you need to open the block editor to have a look at it. It's there in case you don't see it easily. It's going to download Java applet, save it, and then open it. Let it access the internet. It's going to tell you when it's trying to get access to the internet.
Yeah. All good? Allow access, yeah. Huh?
And most people have it, so...
Okay, most people have it, yeah.
So yeah, that's the block editor. This is where you're going to add your code, the things that modify the actions that react to what you do with the phone. So if you go to my blocks here, you're going to see the only thing that you have is the only element that you have in your decided screen, screen 1. If you change the name of the screen, which we haven't done, would be something else. The more elements you add, the more you will have under my blocks.
So your development is split into two main parts. One is building the screen and the look and feel. That's where you drag your buttons, your pull-down boxes, and you actually build it by dragging and dropping those typical sort of GUI components. Of course, behind that, there has to sit some sort of logic, something that ties the buttons together, that says what a button does when you press it, or what happens when you click on something. And that's what you've gone into here with the block editor. One of the things about the block editor is that MIT, has anybody ever seen a program environment called Scratch? No? If you haven't, it's a educational one used by kids. And instead of getting people to write standard programming languages like Java or C++, they have this sort of block-based programming language. It's actually very like a normal programming language. It's just you, instead of writing if, then, you actually drag blocks over and they sort of click together. And that's the environment they used for App Inventor. So once you move into the block editor, you've moved into what you call behind the scenes. It's behind the buttons and the checkboxes. And now you're starting to get the logic. I mean, so one of the very basic logic sort of steps you're going to have to put in there is you're going to have to tell it when to play the sound, you know, when something happens. So we have to program that through the block editor.
So I wish I remember how to go directly to slide that.
Shift F5.
Shift is the one.
It's all right. You get a recap each time you go through it.
So yeah. Same. It's a bit I should have taken a screenshot of my blog so that you can see the blog. You can see that the code is not that complicated, but it can get a bit messy.
So this isn't the code for your web application. This is the code for the multiple choice application that you're going to download and be given for free. So don't sit there and think, oh my god, we have to create all that. Okay. This is what we're going to use later on to try and localize, or what Luthia is going to use later on. Okay. But that in effect, what you're looking at there is a program. Okay, that's what a program looks like in App Developer. But to localize it, we're going to look at some of the stuff under the covers. Questions as we go. It's very quiet, so I'm happy to take questions about anything, life in general, marriage, children. I'm there.
No one's using a phone, so we'll skip that. So yeah, now you're going to need to click and open an emulator, wait until it's full booted, and then log it in. You see where the emulator is there? New emulator, it's in red, just in case someone can't see it. And I'm going to do the same. This computer loads pretty surprisingly fast.
Interesting thing about the emulator and about developers for that, if you look at much of the comments back from apps and the developers back to those comments, you very quickly work out that the price of the hardware, so for instance my phone was an expensive Android phone. Reinhardt agreed with you. But it sort of shocked me to work out that for a lot of the apps that are written in places like India and China, the developers actually don't have any of the smartphones. So they've never seen their apps run on anything other than this emulator. Because you see comments back and say, you know, somebody will say, oh, you know, it doesn't work on my new Galaxy 2, that, you know, your app falls over. And the developer writes something back like, well, you know, I'd love to be able to test it on your Galaxy 2, but I can't afford it. And in fact, the only place I've ever seen it run is on an emulator. So lots of the development for these phones are happening in places where people can't actually afford to buy the hardware that the software is running on.
Which really, the fragmentation is a huge problem then.
Fragmentation is a huge problem.
With the different versions of the OSs, like in this instance here, do you know, does it test on the various versions of Android?
The emulator can emulate on multiple different phones. Okay, so it has different emulators built for different phone types. For those of you who don't know, one of the common attacks between Apple and Android in comparing them is that Apple will say, listen, we're one big company. We control the hardware, We control the marketplace, we control the software, and we guarantee that everything will run on Apple, right? With Android, one of their criticisms would be fragmentation. So that word alone means that, well, when you say Android, you're not talking about one version of Android, you're talking about, well, HTC's version of Android, or Samsung's version of Android, or somebody else's version of Android, and the whole, what Android is now fragmented into loads and loads and loads of different versions, all with subtle differences. And that's why an app may run in one system, but may fall over on another. Okay, so you sort of, it makes testing an app a lot more complicated, because it may work for you on your phone, and it may not work for somebody else on another. So fragmentation is a problem for Android. Okay. But yeah, you can download, emulate different versions.
So the next step is unlocking the phone. Just grab, unlock. There you have it. Should look like that now. And on the block editor, click on connect to device. I didn't put the screen there, but it's just next to new Morera, connect to device. It's a drop-down menu, and there will be one that says emulator and a few numbers, 4 digits usually.
5554 normally.
So just connect to device. It will take a little time. Go to my one.
How did you get to your app?
You did?
Yeah.
That is yours.
Yeah, once it's connected, you'll see its screen. Now back to the design of the screen. Click on screen 1, change the text if you haven't changed it before. You do that on the properties on the right. Each component has their own properties, so you can change text, you can change all things. And I'm just going to do the instructions as I said. I gave there. Here. Right. Properties on the right, title. That's it. It's safe. But
Are you all following that? Or are you
yeah.
Are you all with it? Do you want to see that again? You want to see it again?
So here, to change the text on the, you just go here to title of the element screen 1. You must have selected this. If you have more elements, you have to click on this first, so that you modify the properties of that element. And text, maybe if you don't like probably anything else, just as good. So the bad thing about working with the emulator is that, as far as I know, we cannot shake the emulator. So, and also you're not going to hear it. So another thing that you can do is put a button. So what we're going to do is look on the left and select from the basic palette the button and drag it and drop it on our screen. I'll do it on my own version too.
If you have headphones, you can now connect them. Because there's a sound there.
So just grab the button, drag it. As I said in the slide, you're going to say it looks a bit ugly like this. So one of the things you can do is change the width from automatic to field parent. So it takes the whole width of the screen. Now, that bottom, it's a little bit ugly. So it's going to replace the bottom, well, not replace, just put an image in it. So again, here on the right, properties, if you move, you see there's one property that is image. You see that here? On the left. Just click on it, image. At this moment you don't have any image available, but
This is where you grab the image that you downloaded earlier. If you remember where you put it. I did tell you to remember where to put it.
Yeah, I remember.
actually I think I'm the one who doesn't know where to put it.
LRC Summer School.
Oh, I didn't download it.
Well, if you downloaded it,
The whip thing was Aram's idea.
Well, no, not exactly. I'll take the credit and the discredit.
yeah, that's
Is everybody with us? Is anybody lost? No?
You won't let me.
Good. Most people. So what is happening under the covers is, of course, apps in Android are written in Java. So basically what's happening on the server is that your configuration that you pick, the screen that you build, is communicated, well, you're actually doing it on the cloud anyway, and it's generating Java code for you and compiling that. So when we finish up actually downloading this app, and we'll do it in a minute, what you're getting is compiled Java code that's been compiled up on Google's cloud somewhere.
So you probably had the image already and were faster than me. The text is a bit annoying, so again, just go to text, just get rid of it. You don't need it. And that's looking so far. So it's just telling you to do exactly what I've told you to do now. Now these components so far are all visible, but we're going to add the sound, and the sound is not visible. It's going to appear underneath the screen, below. So again, you go to media this time on your palette, on the left, media. Click on it and it will expand. One of the options that you have is sound. And again, just grab it and drop it on the screen. And you see some non-visible component that appears here underneath the screen.
Remember, as of yet, they're not connected or anything. You're just literally pulling in the resources. They're pulling in the images, pulling in the sounds. There's no logic there yet.
You need the sound to actually play a sound, so you need the source file for that sound. So click on source.
That was the second file you downloaded.
Add. And get the MP3 file. There.
I think we should using the
And now, if you remember the blog editor, before in my blogs we only had screen 1, but now we have screen 1, bottom 1, because we have it at the bottom, and sound 1. I think there are two properties. We are not going to mess with the minimum interval, but that's to prevent the sound overlapping, playing over itself. It's going to leave it as it is, which is 500 milliseconds, so half a second. If your sound is longer than half a second and you trigger it more than once, it's going to overlap, which actually happens with this app. As I said, if you go to the blog editor and you look at the blogs, you have the new Elementor you have added.
Not enough questions, though. Not enough questions. Too much silence.
Do we make an image in the button, or is the image just an image?
one of the properties of the button is image. You can put an image in the button. But if you just drop an image there, it's not going to be the button, it's just going to be an image that you cannot interact with. That's why you want to put the image in the button.
So you'll want to press that image, so you'll want it to behave like a button. So you make a button first and then attach the image to it.
So now is where we start with the logic. You want the phone to react when you click on something. So this is just explanation, but I'm going to do it, I think it's probably better. So we have the button, and these are all the possible things that you can do with the button. Things that you can do or things that you can change. Some of these change properties in the button.
If you're a programmer, these are just events, and they're just this is an event handler.
So I'm selecting the first one when button one click. When you click on the first button on the button, do what you want to do. Is everyone fine?
Is everybody okay? Anybody lost? You alright? You okay?
And now,
Reinhard, could you stop disturbing the class?
and you just wanted to play the sound. So you just go to sound one.
No.
There you have all the options for the sound, and you have one that is playing. And you drop it inside. And if you have headphones and you connect it to your computer, if you click here right now, it would play the whip sound. You can hear it. This is the app on my phone. And that's the way your code should look like right now. So this one you have it. Sort of step. Now that I said that pressing the button, okay, it's not going to work on the emulator, but it's more exciting. It just doesn't work like in the TV series. You want to crack it. So that's where we're going to use one of those features, as Chris pointed out, that you don't have in desktop computers, that you have in mobile phones, because they have these sensors. So we need to add a sensor. So on the left, click on sensor, and the one that detects if the mobile phone is shaking or if it's being inclined in any direction is the accelerometer. So the same as we did with the sound, you just drag in, drop it. Again, it's something that you don't see, so it's appearing in non-visible components. And if we go back, everyone fine with that?
Did everybody see that?
Reinhardt's not.
Doesn't matter.
You teach. And you go to Localizer and you have it, the accelerometer sensor one is there now.
Oh wait, of course.
So it's basically the same operation as we did before with the click. We open and we find out that the second block is when shaking, do something. So simple as dropping it there, and we're going to do the same thing. We want it to play the sound when you shake the phone. And that's it. Now, if you could shake it, it would sound like you heard it. And the app is done.
Just before you finish, everybody get that far, but there's a few things that are sort of cool about it. Do you want to show them the QR code and how you would download that?
Oh, yeah.
Just for you.
Okay.
So if you go home and you sign on, it's all the stuff that you've done here sits on the cloud and it's all there. But you might be thinking, how do I actually get that onto my Android phone when I'm at home? Do I have to plug something in? But they have a really nice, so you can just, if you look here, you can package for phone.
Upper right corner.
You can download to the computer, which will just download a file, or you can show barcode. And if you show barcode, so it's gone away, it's building it now, and in a minute it'll pop up with a QR code. It says, trusting Google will do it. And you're probably familiar with QR codes. You simply just hold up your phone and scan it and click on it, and it'll just download the app straight from the code onto your phone. So it's completely wireless. It will come up.
It doesn't work for me.
Huh?
It doesn't work for me.
What do you mean?
So you have an iPhone?
So the packaging facility is nice. It's taking a little while.
Packaging is a thing that takes a long time.
So has everybody got to that point then? Everybody's happy with that point. I think the next thing we're going to do then is we're going to get you to download the next app, but I'm waiting for this QR code to come back. Because I don't want it to prove me a liar.
Yeah, you can go. If you go
So what we'll do is we'll get you to upload, we'll take you to a directory and you can upload the, these are the prove me a liar, because you've actually obviously done it later and you've got it up already. So we're going to take you to a directory, and you're going to download a pre-built app. This is a multiple choice app, but you'll actually download the source code for it and upload it into your own environment. If you and we'll have a little bit of a look and play with that. Okay, so you know what the URL is for that, or are you packaging it in?
No, I let it. I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm using an incognito window.
Yeah.
I have never done an incognito window. Yeah. Exton. If you had it, you can package it for phone. If you have it on your phone. And now the next app, you can download it from there. It's Localization.ie, LRC Summer.
LRC quiz. So what you need to do is download that zip file to your hard drive somewhere, and then one of the options that you'll get with App Inventor is to upload. So you go back to your project screen, and you're uploading a completely new app now. So I think the button you need to click on is go back to My Projects. And if you click on My Projects, you should find yourself with just one project in there. But you'll actually go to More Actions, and if you have more actions, it'll ask you, one of them is upload, and if you've already downloaded that file, you should be able to upload that zip file. If you're lost, or you find yourself to upload something, just put up your hand. If you're
there it is. Took a while, but there's a QR code.
So if I want to download this to my phone, I literally just scan that with my QR code reader, and I can download that app. Okay, onto my phone. So, sorry. Oh, can you go back to the localization URL?
Yeah. Oh, this is a URL.
That's the URL there, actually. Yeah.
Can you read it there?
So just to run through what you're doing with this now, you're actually downloading the second app, pre-written one, a little bit more complicated. You download that zip file again to somewhere on your hard drive where you can remember where it is. You go back into App Inventor, you click on My Projects, and you should be able to upload it. I'll step through it here, hold on. You're going to do it.
I've downloaded it.
Has everybody got into the second app?
You go to App Inventor then?
So once you're in App Inventor, go to My Projects, right? And you'll see one project there, it'll be the one you've just written, but you actually want to go to More Actions and Upload Source.
And so go to My Projects in case someone has to follow instructions manually. And you say, click on More Actions here, fourth option, upload source. You choose a file which is downloaded.
Right, back to my project.
Okay. Yeah, and once you upload it, you have it there. You have a look at the code on the block editor. There you see it's noticeably more complex than what we had before.
So what we're trying to get you now is into the second piece of the second application.
Right, how do you do that? So how I got to more actions and then what?
More actions, upload source. And it's the zip file you downloaded.
So I'm uploading 2 there from my
Now, Carl isn't here for me to sort of jam him about the questions. And I can talk you through this, but it sort of depends now on where you are in the programming world, how far you can go with this. So this is a relatively straightforward app in some ways. I'm going to talk you through it once everybody gets there.
Even works on really small Android phones. Look,
Small whips. Now, it's probably fair to say that you can't get super complicated when you write something in App Inventor. It's not built for full-blown, heavyweight, industrial-sized applications. But you can actually develop quite interesting ones. Has everybody got to the new app yet? Yeah? Hands up if you haven't. You have? You all have? So, again, I can look at this here, and I can talk through a few components. Here, suddenly we can really see our component list is building up here. And I can literally go through, and as I click on one of those, it nicely, if I look at the viewer, it nicely highlights the component that I'm actually looking at. So I've got table arrangement. Now that's a way of laying out your screen. And I've decided to have a grid table arrangement here, which I've pulled from let me see, screen arrangement over here. Okay, so there's horizontal, there's vertical, there's different ones over there. And I've put in checkbox A, which will go back up here. I find that there's checkboxes. If I wanted to drag it on the checkbox, I could have a checkbox there. And it's literally that easy. I've just dragged over a checkbox. Now I'll decide, you know what, I don't want that checkbox. And I can delete it here. Okay. So I can step through the components that way. And for each component, there's a list of properties. Now the properties for each component, of course, depends on what the component is. You get quite simple components, which are a table arrangement, and it really just wants to know how many columns, how many rows, and do you want it to be visible or not? Okay. And it's got width, automatic, height, automatic, and those let the App Inventor decide how to expand or contract things depending on how large or small the app is. Okay, I can set them if I want. Generally, you probably wouldn't for most environments. And then you get into slightly more complicated, what's the word for it, components, and they have some more features on them. Some of them are pretty straightforward. You can bold them, you can change color, so you can make that blue if I want to. I don't like blue, I'm going to make it green. Okay. Font size, the font type, and again, width and color. But those are basically all the components that I have together on the screen, and I have another horizontal arrangement there. so the block editor again is, where is it? Is it gone? Is what ties all those together. Okay, and I'm going to run a little bit through the logic of the block editor here. There's when the next button is clicked, there's the screen initialization. I haven't done as fancy, but there is some basic databases in there. So I have actually hard coded. Asanka, don't think I'm so bad really, but I've hard coded the questions. So real programmers are out there shaking their heads saying, "What is this man doing?" But these are hard coded sort of questions in here, okay, and the related answers to them. But all the logic is there. The reason why they use this GUI building technique for, I suppose, naive programmers or for beginner programmers is it gets you over all the standard problems that programmers have. And the standard problems when you start programming is you forget to close braces, you forget to match brackets, you forget semicolons. And with this lovely building thing, you don't have to think of it. It's literally like you just drag and drop, and it's even shaped so certain things won't click together. So if you try and sort of attach a piece of logic to another piece of logic where it shouldn't work, it just won't let you because those two items won't click together. So there's a certain amount of sense to it. For the real programmers that are sitting out in their field, you'll find the biggest criticism you'll have for this environment is scalability. If you start to write something large, it starts to not work pretty fast because this is quite a simple little thing and it's already taking up this much of the screen. If I start writing anything too large, it becomes unmanageable and I'll want to switch back to real code. So it's only ever going to be for writing small little apps for doing little things. But still, it gets you there fast and furiously. So if I set two tasks for you to sort of interact a little bit with this, because and I'll let you pick which one you feel confident of doing. The first task is possibly for the people that feel less confident, and that's I would like you to change some of the color and layout of those checkboxes, right? And just so you get an idea of changing some of the attributes, or maybe add some other checkboxes or whatever. For those of you that feel a little bit more confident, I would like you to go into the block editor and add some questions about localization that are better than Carlos. Okay? Before you do anything though, just make sure that you can get it running in an emulator beforehand, just so that you can see it running as you've downloaded it. Again, you have this code, this code is now in your little bit of the cloud, and you can access this code when you go back to wherever you've come from. And I have decided not to copyright it, and it is a free gift from the LRC to you and to your children and their children's children. So again, those two tasks. Either play around with the attribute screen, change colors a little bit, have a look at what attributes there are, have a look at font sizes. And if you're thinking, oh, well, I know all that, I can't learn anything from that, then jump a little bit deeper into it and have a look at the block editor. Add a question, because adding a question will force you to engage with some of the logic which is happening back there in the block editor. Carl, I've been saying all the things about it, when you haven't been here, it's been wasted.
Such is life. Can I give for choosing Android?
No Android bashing. That's right.
It's just a ginormous phone bashing that I do.
Well, is it I have an iPhone and I have 4 columns in one row now, where we have 4 columns.
I don't know, actually.
That's strange.
Yeah, it is sort of strange that it just loses them. You might have to drop them back in there. You know that? You might have to pull them and drop them back in. So in other words, it doesn't It just loses what's there, and you'll have to go over. You'll have to grab them here maybe and try and drop them back in. I think we're doing okay. Yeah.
No, we're okay. Ah, yeah.
If you want to start, if you're feeling really under challenged, right? You can make the whip noise happen for an incorrect multiple choice answer. if you really sort of feel that it's not challenging enough. Okay, so when somebody gets something wrong, you can whip them. But that's for the elite programmers among us. Like Asanka, I expect you to have that done in 5 minutes. It's done.
It's done an API.
Now, happy to take questions as I go. You're too quiet as a student group, so I would want more questions. Again, I'm happy about questions about marriage, kids, cars are okay, mostly. Not very good with cars, really.
My phone storage takes lower.
Oh yeah. So small.
Religion's a good subject, I like that. What? If you wanted a course to, up until, this is quite recent, so I think App Inventor, so its history was originally written by Google. And Google brought it to a certain level, then they said, you know what, we're not going to maintain this anymore. Google have done that with a lot of projects. They start a lot of projects, and if they don't feel that it's quite fitting, or they might sit better somewhere else, they passed it off. So Google gave it to MIT, and MIT would have released this, I think the 12th of March, or sometime in March is when MIT released this. They worked on it for a few weeks after Google give it to them. Of course, it's open source, and the biggest thing that MIT did, I think, was add this block editing environment. If you really want to get into Android app development, the learning curve is probably far greater, and you're actually going to see some of that, but I'd say you're going to be handheld a lot more with it. And you go through an editor called Eclipse, right? You've probably heard of Eclipse. It's used by lots of programmers, not just for Android, for C++, Java, lots of things. And you get plugins for Eclipse. Plugins sort of let the editor adapt itself or adjust itself to a particular environment. So you can get Android plugins for Eclipse that will help you write Java code. So when you're writing for Android, you're writing in Java. Okay? When you're writing for Apple, you're writing in Objective-C. Okay, so they're quite fundamentally different platforms at a very basic level. Okay, transferring between one and the other is not a trivial thing at all. Okay, you're nearly completely rewriting an application. For those of you that have an Android phone, you should, of course, be able to generate the QR code for this and download this app immediately onto your phone.
Those things are kind of events to happen. When you click something, or when you click the next button, or when you click
Everything encapsulated.
So tell everybody what you just did and what you just discovered. So, can you do that up here? Just set it up there and you can.
I didn't even get there, it was good.
Shared learning. Shared learning.
Can you put in the answer in the one?
Is that all?
Has anybody managed to get another question in yet? Good.
So I got a text. I got a text.
No, the color in the block editor sort of it doesn't relate to the screen. It actually relates to where you grab the components over. Okay. Sorry? How can you send?
Center.
Oh, center them. I don't know. It's got to do with the table layout manager. Actually, go down to go to click on checkbox A. I'm just wondering, does it happen? Check font size, text, visible width. Yeah, have a look at that for a second. Try fill parent on each of the four and see if that. I don't know if it will. It might not. It doesn't look like it's changing anything.
So what is this?
What's the change? Go to the table arrangement for a second.
That's the display tab and answer text.
4 columns, 1 row. Yeah. Try width again.
It's this.
But that's the width of the individual. That's the width of this component, not the width of the. What about horizontal arrangement? Because this here, have a look at this one and see what's done here. Because these are centered. Well, these are in effect what you want to happen here, isn't it?
Yeah.
So what's happened here? Try putting it as a horizontal rather than a box. So, do you want to talk through it?
Yeah, okay.
So Solomon's been playing around with localization on the app and what happens. So he knows more about what he's just done than I do.
I try to localize some of the characters which are already on these apps. As you can see here, it's summer, sunny summer. Is it actually sunny summer? Is it? Somewhere. Anyhow, it is called Aram background, and this question is called in Amharic. It is not a Latin character, so it is another character. So after I read, I let's see how it looks like on the apps. Here, have you seen? It doesn't display the exact characters. Okay, it looks like this one. The reason is because there is no font installed on the actually on the emulator, or so even if you localize the software, you have to have a font which is installed in your mobile phone or something just like that. So on my mobile phone, I already installed a font that can work. So any applications, even if you localize, if there is no font installed in the operating system, it doesn't work.
But if you download that app onto your phone that has it installed, that works fine now.
Yeah, this one, for example, I already installed the Amharic.
And
it shows only the Amharic. So you have to download the fonts. So it's not only translating, but you have to have all the things must be.
So we have one extra question, two extra.
I have one, but
yeah.
How do I indicate which is the right answer?
So that is there in the block editor, but it's in a different set of blocks. So if you look, the answers. So I've got the different check boxes, and that would have been the correct answer for this. And this would have been. So I'm checking here actually. Hold on. Answer list, yeah, so you have to add it. Okay. The program is a little bit all over the place. If you're used to normal programming in a textual environment, you're used to, sequences. In a block editor, your code can be to the left and the right, and it's sort of piggly around the place. I actually don't like it. if the truth be known, I don't. But that's, I think, I'm obviously biased. I've programmed what I call normal text programming for more than 1 year now. No, more than 25. So that's what I'm used to. So I'm obviously going to find this thing slightly different. But maybe for somebody that hasn't programmed before at all, they find it easier. My children program in a similar environment in Scratch, and they seem to like it. But I don't think it scales. But it's very, very fast for getting an app out there. You can literally write quite a functional app, something like a multiple choice questionnaire in 2 or 3 hours. You can put it out there. Just to give you some idea of some of the other stuff that's out there, there's quite a nice lot of support. So if I go into Learn, what is App Inventor set up? There's a series of nice tutorials, and they literally step you through a series of applications. So there's one like Paint Pot, where you can sort of do a little bit of a painter for painting different colors. There's Mole Mash, which is a game where you sort of are trying to belt the little thing jumping around your screen. This is just giving you an idea of what you can produce quite quickly from these. There's Pick Call, so you press to pick a number to call. I don't know that. And what are the other interesting ones? There's a Quiz Me, but it's a different quiz. I think you actually type in the text. I think that's what I might have started off on, and then I decided to go multiple choice, and I did that. But you can show pictures and ask questions about it and check to see if it's the right answer or not. There's a tutorial for introducing texting components, map tour. All these are there, total walkthrough for you building these. Okay. Where's my car? Mole Mash tour, color stock quotes. And stock quotes is sort of getting into sort of more interesting, useful sort of things. Because one of the things that is really powerful about apps is when you start connecting them to back-end processes using web services. So in other words, it lets you access real heavy computing in the background. So rather than being a little game on your phone, in fact what you're doing is searching a super large database on some machine somewhere. And it's, so this stop quotes thing looks at how you can access web services. So in other words, somebody somewhere provides web services is a bit like virtual libraries. It's where I write an application. So for instance, the Rosetta Foundation might decide that they want to write an app that allows people to pick particular translation tasks and match them to their particular likes, dislikes, languages, etc. Right? So the way they would do that is they'd get one of the programmers to provide a web service that lets somebody query it, and then an app would be written that actually talks to that back-end server over the web, and it sends the information down to the phone. So the phone isn't really carrying the database or hasn't any information. The phone is just a front end that uses this web service, and web services are very common in computing now. Google, and again that's how mobiles work with Google. Google would advertise its web services, so you could put them in your app. That's why you can build an app that says, you might build a app that sells houses, and one of the functions might be, bring up your house location on Google Maps, and you can use Google Maps web services. And if you borrow web services from different companies, so you might buy a web service, you might use web services from Google Maps, and you might borrow some web services, use some web services from Amazon, and use some web services from various other companies that provide them on the web. You bring them together. The term for them in computing terms is called mashups, and you suddenly have amazing and powerful applications, which the only thing they really do is just pull together other web services from companies, and they do stuff like show you maps and stock exchanges and whatever, and they just pull that information together and show it. The real processing power is happening by these big companies like Amazon. They're providing the information. You're just pulling it together and mashing it up a little bit together to produce that. And there's an awful lot of apps that work on that sort of basis and functionality. So the stock quotes thing uses web services. And again, stuff like where's my car uses GPS coordinates. I have an app on my phone which sends me an alarm every time my car enters a place where there's a speed camera.
Okay.
Because the app goes to the internet, finds the location of all the speed cameras in the country.
Your car goes up, actually.
Huh? No, I can't. It just makes me feel good to have the app, that's all. But, so again, it uses location information, so it's constantly using location information for that. So there's an app that uses your GPS. And I think one of the most interesting things about using these phones is the sort of extra information you can get from the various sensors that are on them, which is sort of part of the thing of today. It's beyond the sort of desktop, because you're carrying around your location with you, the orientation, and lots of other stuff. I'm all talked out. Any questions? Comments?
One question. You know the screen where you have the blocks of all the actions? You know what's that one called?
The block editor.
Block editor. Is there a way you can encapsulate them into like sub-functions? I'm thinking of, say, max MSP, those kind of other block-based programming methods.
Yeah, so there isn't, as far as I know now, but interestingly enough, the pre-runner of this, which is what Scratch I was talking about, has just announced that yes, you can create functions now. So what he was asking was, one of the standard things in a programming language was can I take all this functionality and wrap it up and just give it a name? So, which is really what a function does. And you can't here, but Scratch you can, so I imagine pretty quickly you will be able to here. So you'll grab a whole box and you'll just have a parameters and a name for it, and pass something and you'll get something out. It seems like a natural thing to happen.
Sorry, you have an object web services somewhere?
There is no, this particular application you're looking at doesn't use web services. Okay, if you wanted to look at web services, go to those. So what I did there, just to take it through again, if you go into Learn and you go into Tutorials, these are completely separate tutorials. Each one of them talks about different things, but the stock quotes one here uses web services. So I think it tells you where it pulls it from. Yeah, so I think it's using, this particular one is using Yahoo's stock quoter. So if I go to...
That's the object web then?
Yeah, so basically, yeah, that's where it's going to find its information. And that is web 1 here. I haven't done this particular tutorial, so... Okay. It's not too long though. If you want to try this one, feel free to try any of these. I mean, they're all there. And like I said, everything you have now, you still have at home because it's on the cloud. And anything you start and don't finish will still be there when you sign on next time. So, yeah.
Is there any way of accessing the source code?
No. And it's something I've looked at because it's sort of interesting, often as a means to, because the interesting thing is from an educational point of view, and I'm talking as a lecturer now, can I introduce somebody into an app using this, get them to write an app, so get them started really quick, and then slide them into a little bit deeper and start to sort of unplug it and go under the covers, so that they can start, mingling and mixing with Java. The answer is no. So if I'm thinking of teaching this, I nearly have to do a session like this and then say, listen, forget that, because now we actually have to go back down to Android and plugins and do it the hard way. There isn't at least any way I can interface with what they have. So it's this magic that's happening back there on the cloud, and there's no easy way, which is a bit of a pity.
Is there any match between the labels, like next button dot click? Does that get reflected in a click as well, or just
the components that you have there are standard. So hold on, just let me. I'm just trying to find the right name. So these components you have there are standard sort of GUI components. So they're part of a standard build. So one of the advantages, and I'm slightly moving off because I know that everybody here isn't an educational person, but if I was thinking of teaching it, there is an advantage in getting up front with this, because these components are standard GUI components. In fact, in any programming environment that has GUI, you have standard components. So if you're a Java programmer, you're probably familiar with Swing. If you're a C++ programmer, you use some sort of Qt or some sort of web component environment. So these components and the names of them are standard. Right? It's like your standard box of Lego bricks for building your GUI interfaces, and you get them in all languages. So even when you go into the Android side of things, you will have these components. They will look the same and feel the same to a certain degree. Okay? It's just the real difference is when you go into the block editor here. The block editor that ties them all together in the Android world is you writing Java code, and it's much more fiddly. But as with all engineering sort of disciplines, there's a trade-off. You get much more flexibility and much more industrialized sort of strength capabilities by building it from scratch. Here you get it out fast and quick, but you are constricted by what the environment lets you do. Okay? So they're trade-offs. So if you can get your app working with App Inventor, there's no reason why you shouldn't do it. But once you start hitting a wall where you want to do something which App Inventor doesn't quite let you do, you're stuck because there's no flexibility there anymore. So it lets you build a standard sort of things, and then after that it starts to get a little bit more difficult, and to the point where eventually you would reject that. So, yeah. And interestingly, in terms of my understanding, I haven't developed apps on the three environments, three smartphone environments. So I'm talking about Windows, Apple, and Android. I understand that of the development environments, Microsoft has actually got the best, probably. They let you develop apps faster and easier than anybody else. They're also by far the smallest on the market. I mean, they're only in the single digits in terms of percentage usage, I think. And the most complicated environment to develop an app in is Apple. Okay? That's my understanding. Maybe somebody can correct me. Are you Apple?
Apple, Microsoft, and Android also.
So yeah. So would you agree? Would you say Apple's the most complicated?
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. And Android would be after Apple. Okay. But I haven't developed a lot in Apple. But I've sat working with people that have developed stuff when I've been developing Android stuff, and I've said, shit, this is really messy and finicky. And they said, you go to Apple, it's much worse. So Microsoft do their development environment very well, but it's also probably the least commercial one, the least present one. Apple and Android are probably neck and neck. I think Apple are growing. They might have. It depends who you ask, but they're probably neck and neck. But Android is probably growing faster, actually. But I don't know, probably changes from month to month.
Yeah. In the States, Apple is growing now faster than Android.
Yeah, but
But in Europe,
States is small biggies on the market. So over the next few days, well, next after this, what we will sort of look a little bit underneath the cover. Lucia is going to take you into behind the scenes where you're probably not meant to look, okay? But she's going to take you there. And so suddenly it's going to get messier and gooier. And she's going to show you some of the background stuff which is happening, which probably they don't really want you to look at and see. And then over the next few days, you're going to get to develop an app on a Windows environment. How many people have a Windows phone? Yeah, I guess that. Oh, do you? Oh, there you go. One. I'm surprised. So you're going to get to see a Windows development environment, and you'll also get to see probably where most of the apps on Android are developed on an Eclipse environment with plugins.